right. So first, I just want to introduce myself. My name is Nigeria Chambers of Big Gold Belt Media, and I'm based out of Washington, D.C. And it's a pleasure to speak to the two of you all. I just first off want to start off by saying congratulations already on the success in the British market and the upcoming success in the American market. This is a fantastic series, and I'm already craving more. So I have to start off with you, Neil, with the hard questions here. No, but really, I did read something, and I kind of just want to hear it from your mouth. Is it true that this really sadistic series came in based off of a dream you had?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure dreams technically. Yes.
Okay.
It was a dream that didn't feel like a dream, which is the key. So I was brought up in the West Country in England, in a city called Bristol, and my home life was very complicated. I spent a lot of time at my sister's house. My sister lived in a big, sprawling council estate on the very, very edge of town, post-war, and I one night when I was 15, 16, I was astonishingly drunk, kind of incapable drunk. And I was stumbling home, which was not unusual, to my sister's house. She'd God bless her, I never had a key, but she'd leave a bedroom window open and I'd just climb into the bedroom window. And I was stumbling home, astonishingly drunk, kind of incapable drunk. And there was a shortcut to my sister's house, up these very creepy concrete steps through the woods. And I took the shortcut through the woods at 3 o'clock in the morning. And I woke up the next day. And there's an experience which I think most of us have had at some point in our lives, is when you wake up after drinking heavily the night before, you have a second or two of peace. And then this kind of rush of vertigo as you think, holy shit, what did I do last night? Except rather than remember something stupid I said or some embarrassment that I perpetrated on myself, I remembered with absolute clarity randomly killing a homeless man on the steps. And this had no quality whatsoever of being a dream. It was absolutely a memory. I walked home. He was kind of sort of bundled up by the side, by the trees. He was asleep. I took out my knife and I stabbed him and I stabbed him and I stabbed him and I stabbed him. And then I walked home and fell asleep. None of which happened.
Yeah.
And I discovered subsequently that it's quite an unusual form of OCD, I think, that I've self-diagnosed. But this is not that. It's not a unique occurrence. It's a thing that happens in people's heads. I promise. Yeah. Not a total thing. But I was haunted by it for years and years and years. And there was always part of me that felt that, well, it made me realize how quickly and how profoundly your life can change from one. Yeah. That was the takeaway from it.
Yeah, that sounds a lot. That sounds a lot what is driven through the character Nathan. And Rita, just want to say your character Holly, first of all, an amazing performance. I just was so attached to your character because even in my review, I said I built Holly as just this really strong woman that you just had to root for. And because she wasn't aware of everything, and because we were aware more than she was, you just sympathize with her the entire time. I just want to know, can you talk a little bit about the connection that you have with this character and sort of the appeal in this role? Like upon like reading the script, like what was the moments where your eyes just really lit up and was like, oh, I need this?
Well, number one, it was the writing. So the writing to me is always the first thing I look at. The lines were dead easy to learn, which means the writing's good. So I knew the lines for my audition. Sometimes you don't. But also it was, I love the fact that she is broken or has suffered or is suffering and is grieving. But but she doesn't wallow in it. Even when she talks about it, it's not, she doesn't pity herself, and I really like that in her, that she is really strong for herself, for her mother and her father, for her community around her, and she gets back on her feet and keeps striving to make the most of what she has and to really go for life.
Yeah.
And it may not have turned out the way she wanted to, and maybe she's still struggling with the guilt and the aftermath of everything that's happened, but she just keeps going. And I think when she is faced with challenges, and when she is faced with the struggle of connecting with Nathan as he starts to lose himself in the past, she's kind of like the anchor for me of the story. She's trying to stay rooted in the present while the past is literally catching up and crumbling everything around Nathan and even Bob. And so it's difficult to say that it was just the character that drew me in, because it's really the story that drew me in, and the way that these characters deal with what's going on around them, and the way that the characters make their choices, and ultimately sort of Holly's almost the only brick left standing towards the end of it, and everyone just sort of going a bit nuts.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm gonna throw one back at you, Neil. Now, again, I thought this series was just fantastic. I definitely agree. The writing was absolutely brilliant. And I could imagine how thrilled you were seeing your characters come to life, because there was just good performances up and down the board. Was this always a plan to make this a mini series? I mean, as a fan, I love to see the possibilities of where this story could go. And as a two-part question to that, is there more story to be told here?
I would. The plan was always a miniseries. It's based on a novel that I wrote a long time ago, and a fixed story that I wanted to revisit and reassemble in a different order. But as a viewer, even more than a colleague, although also as a colleague, I fell in love with the characters. And I do, in my heart of hearts, I would love to see more of them. It was never designed to be that, but I wake up in the morning telling myself little stories about what happens next.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It's always the best when a writer's in love with the story and even thinks about the future. That brings a smile to my face. Amrita, too, I just want to kind of also hear from your mouth now. Holly's and Nathan's relationship. Nathan, I would say Holly, like you said, is built with grief and love, and then there's innocence, but there's a sense of hope that you just rally behind. And Nathan does share at times similar qualities, but his intentions could be deemed questionable. But how would you describe their relationship? Like, what's the comforting words that you can say to viewers as to why this relationship made sense?
Because Nathan is really vanilla, and Holly really needs some damn vanilla in her life. And turns out he's not that vanilla. He's got that, when you think those really cheap ice cream cones that you think is just vanilla, and then you bite into it and it's got that like crappy gooey stuff inside. That's Nathan. It's got that goo inside that just starts to like come. Really bad analogy. No, because Nathan is like, they both want the same thing ultimately, is to have a solid, good life. So she's found someone that's like, apparently no drama, nothing. He's so nice, so sweet. And also he's the only person, I suppose, for a long time, at least when she meets him, she thinks, that knows Holly is Holly, not Holly, the dead or missing girl's sister. Do you know what I mean? So I think that probably has an appeal, but it's just comfortable, isn't it? That's kind of what she's after. And I think that relationship has worked up to then, because, as in his own words, he just wants her to be happy.
Yeah.
So their life is catered towards, I just want to be happy. And I mean, the book does it amazingly, where it's so regimented that they have their holiday every Sunday. They go around to Holly's parents and have their Sunday lunch, then they go for a walk and and life is just, you know, cool until turns up.
Oh, Bob, the bearer of bad news. I do have another question, but I'll swing it towards the end because it is a spoiler question. So I just want to make sure I just give it a nice, good cutoff point to the listeners here to know that question will be spoiler. But back to you, Neil. At what point, and I kind of want to know, at what point did you ingest the supernatural aspect to it? Or like, what was really the idea process in adding that element? Because, and the reason why I'm asking the question is because I guess for me and for all the characters, I feel like there is a layer of mental health being addressed. And then when you add the supernatural element, it starts the question of, well, which one is it? And I know it's billed as supernatural stuff happening, but is it genuinely that? Or is this sort of the grieving / guilt process that the characters are dealing with, and it all ultimately is manifesting into something supernatural?
I've got a lifelong, a very ambivalent, but quite profound lifelong relationship with the supernatural.
Okay.
The first movies and TV shows I remember loving are also movies and TV shows that scared the living shit out of me. And I was never able quite to understand how, it's like eating a really hot chili. It's the, what am I doing to myself? This is agony, but also it's delicious. And it's something, it's a relationship which continues throughout my life, which I've kind of dragged along with me through adolescence and into my senility. And I have a very mechanistic worldview. I've got a scientific worldview. I'm not a believer in the supernatural. I'm a believer in the scientific method. I'm a believer that at some level, although we might never get there, the universe is a profound and vast and mysterious place, but ultimately, at some level, explicable. So I do not believe in ghosts. But ask me that question at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I will give you a very, very different answer. And I've got a profound and crippling, for instance, fear of the dark. If I'm alone in the house at night, not only do I have to have the light on, I have to have every light in the house on. If there's a cupboard or closet which has got a light in it, I have to have the light on in that closet, even though the door is closed. And that stuff just bleeds into the kind of stories that I tell. I'm just a scared person, is the truth. I'm just scared of everything.
I see what you did there. Yeah, that's why I had to watch this with all the lights on in the house. I see. Well, it's good to confirm that you are the source of that, and it just isn't me. Also, I think that you being on Russell's podcast could be some good content there, talking about your stories after dark. I think that could be something really interesting here. Anybody that's listening, I do encourage you all to check out the series on Hulu. It's dropping this Friday. This is a spoiler question. Again, encourage you to watch the series first before listening to this question, but it will be eat me up if I did not ask it. This is for the two of you all, but mostly Amrita. I want to know, with Holly, what was it about that moment when she hit her breaking point, when she discovered Nathan was at the party? Why was that her discovering that? Why was that much more of a bigger deal than the actual positivity that came out of that moment of the case being closed? Why was that just the point where she just was just like, I'm done? And I think, and it was important to me as the viewers, is that I think that the viewers is going to absolutely side with Holly the entire time. That it almost caught us off guard, because it's just like, you've been so subtle, so humble, and we know everything was leading to the point of you want to know how this was going to go play out. And then that happened, and that trumped everything. So why was that just the moment that just really broke her?
Because he was there. Because literally he was there the whole time and knew and didn't tell her. He knew everything and he was there and he literally didn't tell her. And that, in that moment, it's unforgivable anyway, I think. It's a it's a really interesting question, isn't it, Neil? I'm not sure what you feel about it. It was a very instinctual, it was a really instinctual reaction. And actually me and the director had a bit of a discussion because they were going to cut the bit where she breaks the frame because of the glass and the time. And I was really, really adamant that she had to have a moment of absolutely losing it because, as you say, it had been nothing up until that point. She'd been so held together. But Neil, maybe you can shed some light on that.
I think, that is I don't want to blow smoke, but that's a really, can I swear? That's a really good question. It's a proper, and it's one that I had to think about. It's one I had to go back and deconstruct the story. And I think the reason why, there's a scene between Holly and Nathan in the first episode where they meet for a drink and she tells him what happened to her. And it's one of the things that I've made of which I'm most proud. I think if I were to select a scene that I've written that's come across on screen, not only as good as I could make it, but better, it's that scene. And Holly is so strong and complex and broken and vulnerable. I love that scene.
Yeah.
And I think at that point in her life, she has not been in a position whereby she does make herself vulnerable in that way. And that moment when she's just met Nathan is the moment when he could have chosen to tell the truth and say, oh my God, I think I was there. So when she was at her most vulnerable and open is actually the moment of his first betrayal. And I think her realizing that lie makes her realize that everything was based on that one lie of omission. That's standingly good question, and I had to think about that.
It's a great question.
Thank you so much. Well, again, everybody, The Sister is dropping on Hulu. Definitely check this out. It's been a pleasure talking to you all. Again, much success for the release here in the American market, and I can't wait to see what you two work up next. I'm definitely huge fans now, and I appreciate all the work for this.
Oh, well, thank you, man. We'll speak again soon, I hope.